That was a little private joke we had going on there. Good afternoon. So glad that you're here. Welcome to the Lehigh College of Business and the 12th Donald M. Gruhn Distinguished Finance Speaker Series. I'm Georgette Chapman Phillips. I'm the Kevin and Lisa Clayton Dean of the College of Business. On behalf of President Simon and Lehigh Business, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you, including our trustees, faculty, staff, students, and members of the community. It's a very special day for us here at Lehigh Business because we get to welcome back Cathy Engelbert, class of 1986, and the benefactors of this event, Don and Judy Gruhn. Where are you? I can't find you. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I love this lecture series because it gives us the opportunity to bring back nationally and internationally recognized thought leaders, such as Ms. Engelbert, to our campus, and allow them to interact with you, our faculty, our staff, our students, our friends, to address the pressing business issues of today. You know, here at Lehigh, we take a special pride in preparing our students for success. And what better preparation can you think of than to have you, our students, engage with people that have achieved the type of success that you are destined to achieve? The Gruhn Lecture Series was established in 2008, and it's just one example of the way that we're always trying to bring practice and theory together here at Lehigh. Distinguished alumni such as Don Gruhn, Lehigh class of 1949, yes, when Asa was walking the campus, find many different avenues to give back to their alma mater. With his wife, Judy, Don's generosity is felt throughout the campus, you know, from endowing scholarships to contributing to our financial services laboratory and the Martindale Society, to supporting our beautiful Zollner Art Center, the journalism, the athletic departments, special friends in the business college, things that we have to thank John and Judy for every day. We are really very happy and very proud to have his generosity extend across the campus to include not just the things that I've previously mentioned, but also our new College of Health. In case you haven't noticed from all the banners hanging around the campus, we actually are in campaign mode, a $1 billion campaign mode that we're very, very happy. I'm sorry, I keep looking up to the wrong side. That we're very, very happy that you have joined us. The Gruhn Lecture Series is another way that Don supports Lehigh. We're grateful for this opportunity to welcome another thought leader to campus. I'd like to invite Provost Pat Farrell, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, to the podium to introduce Ms. Engelbert.
Thank you, Georgette. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to introduce Cathy Engelbert, the new commissioner of the WNBA and former CEO of Deloitte. Cathy began to learn the culture of self-reliance, determination, and the ethic of hard work from her family. Raised in Collingswood, New Jersey, her dad held 3 jobs, and her mom worked to send her and her 5 brothers and 2 sisters to college. When Cathy's WNBA appointment was announced, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said that she is the ideal person for the job because she is a world-class business leader with a deep connection to basketball. I hope Cathy would agree when I say that these attributes were nurtured during her time at Lehigh. Cathy was recruited by top schools for lacrosse. She chose Lehigh because of its academic reputation, size, and because she could play 2 sports. During her freshman year, she surprised then head women's basketball coach Muffet McGraw during a walk-on tryout for the team. Cathy was an automatic starter and was point guard her junior and senior years. McGraw, who is now Notre Dame's head coach, described Cathy as a natural player who knew how to score the quiet points as well as the three-pointers. Majoring in accounting, Cathy was a star student athlete and became captain of both teams. The lacrosse team made the NCAA tournament during her junior year, and when she was a senior, the basketball team won the East Coast Conference Championship, where she was named the tournament MVP. Recognized by Lehigh for her athletic achievements, she received the Hall Foundation Award, given to the most outstanding senior female athlete, and the Lewis Needy Basketball Award for being the team's MVP. Cathy said in a Lehigh alumni article that her college experience brought her out of her shell and taught her how to handle grace under fire, a skill that serves her well today. She expressed appreciation for her great professors and advisors in the business school, including Professor Ken Sinclair. Recruited by the accounting firms as a senior, Cathy began her 30-year-plus career at Deloitte, a Fortune 100 company known worldwide. A CPA, she began at Deloitte as a financial instrument specialist and rose to become chairman and CEO of the company's audit subsidiary. In 2015, she made history for breaking the glass ceiling and becoming the first woman CEO of Deloitte, one of the Big Four accounting firms. She also served as a member of Deloitte's board of directors. A strong supporter of diversity and inclusion, Cathy is committed to advancing women into leadership roles. She was the first woman to chair the board of directors of Catalyst, a nonprofit organization that drives positive employment change for women. In 2015, she inspired students as a panelist presenter at Lehigh's inaugural Women in Business Conference, where she encouraged students to take charge of their career experience. An active alumna, Cathy is serving her third term as a member of Lehigh's Accounting Advisory Board in the College of Business. In 2017, she was the keynote speaker at Lehigh Wall Street Council Spring Reception and shared her business acumen with alumni in the financial services sector. The following year, Cathy gave our commencement address. She told the graduates that when she sat where they were in her cap and gown, that she never imagined the accomplishments she would achieve and encouraged them to go after their dreams. Her philanthropy to her alma mater has generously supported the women's basketball and lacrosse teams, the athletics partnership, and the accounting department. Widely respected, she has received many top honors, including being on Fortune's list of most powerful women in the last 4 years. Married and a mother of 2, Cathy also has been recognized as one of Working Mother magazine's 50 most powerful moms. Please welcome Cathy Engelbert.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I would now like to introduce junior Mary Clockerty, a guard on Lehigh's women's basketball team, who will lead the conversation with Cathy. Mary is double majoring in accounting and business, information systems, and minoring in global studies. She is a TRACS Writing Fellow, a member of the College of Business Junior Executive Advisory Board, and co-captain of Tide, a club that fosters inclusion in the athletic community. As a Tauk Scholar, she interned this past summer at a virtual reality startup company in Shanghai. Please welcome Mary Clockerty.
Thank you. All right, let's go, Mary. Well, hi, Cathy. We are so honored to have you at Lehigh today, and we are so excited to hear your thoughts on leadership.
Yeah, Mary, it's great to be here. And Don and Judy, where are you? Thank you so much, Don. We're looking forward to getting together after this, but, thank you for having me today. Thank you for all your support of Lehigh. I really appreciate it.
So now, Provost Farrell just gave the audience a pretty good introduction of you with all your accomplishments and accolades. But one thing that stood out to me was your family. Coming from a family of 5 myself, I know what it's like to grow up in a large family. How would you say your family experiences helped shape the person you are today?
Yeah, so the provost mentioned I'm one of 8 children with 5 brothers, and my oldest sister is sitting right here. Hi, Beth. She works right across the river here at the hospital. But, it totally shaped me because, when you come from a big family and 5 brothers and that male-dominated world, and then I came to Lehigh, which I think only had women for a decade when I showed up in 1982, with 4 male to 1 female. And then I joined a profession that was really male-dominated with 93% or 7% male partners at the time. And so, you might say that the family really, I competed from the moment I was born with the brothers. My sister and I used to hide stuff in our room, Pop-Tarts and cereal, because the brothers would steal them from us. So I competed from a very early age. So I became very competitive. And obviously, I had my father actually was drafted by the Detroit Pistons in 1957 in the NBA. So you might say I also had some basketball genes, right. Early basketball genes. And at the time, the salary playing for the Pistons, this is how long and far the NBA has come, was $900 for the year. And he got a job with a company called RCA for $2,000. So he chose the big money at RCA and never did play in the NBA, but got drafted.
Right, and as a member of the Lehigh women's basketball team and our athletic community, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. How did your experiences on the varsity basketball and lacrosse teams help prepare you for your professional and leadership positions and for life in general?
Yeah, I think when you play college athletics, especially today at the D1 level, so very much respect Mary and hopefully some of our athletes that are in the audience today. I mean, it really, you don't know it until years later, but it creates leadership skills. And whether you captain the team or not, working in a team, and then when I went to Deloitte, everything was about being in a team. And having been the point guard of Lehigh's team under Muffet McGraw, it was just natural then to be the point guard and to direct and drive the team and lead the team. And so those leadership skills are formed at a very early age. And for me, it was here, in Bethlehem, at Lehigh, playing both sports, captaining the teams. We won the East Coast Conference. We were 24-4 my senior year. This was Muffet's first head coaching job. She went on, obviously, to be a Naismith Hall of Fame coach at Notre Dame, but she got her roots here at Lehigh, first 5 years, I think, of her coaching career. And so you learned lessons along the way about, you must be your best in your ordinary moments, and ordinary moments were practice. Because then if you got on the court and it was the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left and you were on the foul line and you were tired, you remembered how good you were in those ordinary moments in practice so that you could perform in the extraordinary moments on the court. Mm-hmm. So those were all things I took into business with me. Just didn't know it at the time that it would actually provide a great foundation ultimately to lead a firm of 100,000 people and now a league that, obviously is doing well.
Right, and I agree with you completely. Leadership is such a strong foundation that they create here for athletes, so definitely appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to see how it turns into fruition after college. And more broadly, in what ways did your Lehigh experience as a whole prepare you for those positions?
Well, one of the best things about Lehigh, I showed up at Lehigh really, really shy. And so I think Lehigh, because of its mix of amazing academics and for me, great athletics and the social environment, it really brought me out of my shell. And it actually taught me a huge amount of resilience to face down whatever I was going to look at in the future. And, I walked in my freshman English class and I was the only woman in the class. And I still remember that today. But, it taught me that it didn't matter that I was the only woman in the class. And then when I joined the business world, in many cases, I was the only woman in the room, including starting in 2015 as a female CEO. So, Lehigh really provided such a great training ground so that when I walked in rooms, I had confidence. I built a collaborative, kind of skill set while I was here because of playing sports and kind of the academic and social world here. So when I was hired by Deloitte, you know what they said the differentiator about me was? It was Lehigh. They said Lehigh produces such well-rounded candidates who thrived ultimately later in their career. And there's no way they ever thought I'd be the CEO of Deloitte at the time, but they just said this well-rounded experience that they saw in the Lehigh student, and they hired from all the best colleges in the country, that was a differentiator. So I think that's pretty cool for the students in the room to realize, the reputation of Lehigh.
Mm-hmm. And as a student in the business school, I really admire and look up to you in those positions as the CEO of Deloitte and now WNBA Commissioner. And I'm sure you've had many amazing experiences in those roles. What would you consider your most rewarding accomplishment as CEO?
Well, probably, running a very people-first agenda. So when you run a professional services firm of 100,000 people, your big asset is your people. And if you're not, other companies who make products, they can invest in research and development, R&D, and, drive new products. But when you're a professional services, you're selling your people, your teams, your intellectual human capital. And so, I think, what I was able to accomplish was kind of a very people-first agenda. We went from about 65,000 to 100,000 people over my 4 years. We went from about 15.8 billion to 20 billion in revenue. We were driving, again, a very people-first agenda. We invested in our people around family leave, the first firm of our size and scale to give 16 weeks, 24 weeks to the birth mother, but 16 weeks for any family event, sick parents, sick child, sick sibling. And my brother had cancer. I was able to go to every chemotherapy over 6 months with him. So, being able to do that and having the courage, and we created something we called the culture of courage during my term. And we didn't identify or define what courage meant, because for some it meant to feel entrepreneurial and innovative. For some it was around diversity and inclusion and feeling like we had a great platform around that. And we have 5 generations in the workforce today. I am one of the last of the baby boomers, and then we have Gen X, Y, Millennial, and Gen Z, a digital native right here. And you have to actually find, the life cycle of an employee. So I'm proud, again, of running a very people-first agenda, which is why now at the WNBA, I'm out there saying I'm running a very player-first agenda. Now, going from 100,000 people to 144 players is quite different, but you should be able to make an impact. And I think an impact not only on those 144 players, but on women in sports more broadly and women in society. So that's kind of my vision and goal right now.
And I'm just so impressed on how far-reaching your impact is and still will be on people's personal and family lives.
Yeah, that's so important when you're running a people-first agenda. And everything I did was for people, was for men and women, not just women, because I felt it was important that everybody had the opportunity to rise in an organization. You want the best talent no matter what, but you also want to create an inclusive culture as well.
Right, yes. And now, as you mentioned, you're the WNBA Commissioner, and aside from being able to hang out with MVP Adelina Deladon and award my hometown, the Washington Mystics, their first championship trophy, what do you like most about being the WNBA Commissioner?
Well, first, Mary, it might be helpful for the audience to know why I took this job, because as I was looking at retiring from Deloitte after 33 years, literally I started basically the day after I graduated from Lehigh, I wanted to do something different, something with a broad women's leadership platform, and something I had a passion for. And I actually had no intention ever to come back to basketball, despite the DNA and the roots and Muffet and all the good stories around that. And so as I started to look at what was out there were a lot of corporate jobs that I was being called about, but those weren't something different. In many cases, those didn't have a broad women's leadership platform. And again, I might have had some passion for, especially if it was healthcare and that kind of stuff, but it wasn't quite the passion I found here. So, it was a job made for me, I think, at a time when we have this moment in women's sports coming off the U.S. soccer World Cup win. We have this momentum around the WNBA. They are the best elite athletes in the world. And then we have this movement around women's empowerment. And it just struck me as I was on the road this summer going to all 12 of our markets, like there's the 3 M's: moment, movement, and momentum. And there's a time right now to take advantage of all that. I think, again, my vision is for all women, not just for women basketball, but it's the time to really rise up and get, only 5% of all corporate sponsorship dollars in sports go to women, and only 5% of all media coverage of sports covers women. And so, this is kind of the perfect problem for me to help solve, because if we can just tick that up a little bit, I think, we can get more investment and capital into women's sports, because these athletes, there's nothing wrong with the product on the court, and these athletes deserve, to be treated, like professional athletes. And today, we don't have the funding right now to do that.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you use those 3 M's that you just mentioned to face some of the challenges you face as the commissioner?
Yeah, so, we need more fans in our seats. That's number one for any sport. But we need also to give that fan an experience. So I've been talking about the 3 pillars that I'm working under: fan experience, player experience, and economics. And the economics actually goes across everything, because if you have the right economics, you can fund a better fan experience. Watch anything. Watch Major League Baseball today with the playoffs. Watch the NBA, which just tipped off last night. And every time they pan on the fans, what are they doing? Looking at their devices. So one of the things I want to do is be bold around how to integrate your device with the game, the live game, in arena, and get more digital natives and younger fans into our sport, because the product on the court has never been better. And we're the only women's professional sports league to survive over 2 decades. We just concluded our 23rd year, but we don't have enough money. We don't have the right economics. We don't have fans in the seats. And, just an example of the coverage. So the women's U.S. national basketball team, so the equivalent of USA Soccer, USA Basketball, they're going for their 7th consecutive gold medal in Tokyo next summer. 7th. And their record in the 6 gold medals, 100 wins and 1 loss. This is like a dynasty of massive proportions, and guess what? Nobody's talking about it. NBC did their 1-year run-up in July, even before I started. Had I been started, I would have called them. 1-year run-up in July, didn't even mention the women's basketball team. Why is this? So, if you go to your cable remote or your Fios remote or your DirecTV remote and sort by sports, women's sports doesn't even come up on the menu. And so, I'm going to chip away. I've already called the head of Comcast, the head of Verizon. I said, this is the beauty is this is my 2nd career. So I can use every chip, because, this is what I want to do, make an impact and transform the league and transform women's basketball and women's sports. But it's going to be really hard. It's a multi-dimensional transformation.
Yeah, and I personally have a lot of faith in you on working towards that transformation.
I'm going to make a lot of people mad along the way, but again, in a 2nd career, you can make more people mad.
Right, yeah. Well, being an athlete, you have thick skin, and
yes.
I think you're the best for the job. But here at Lehigh, we are preparing to break boundaries and striving to move business forward. One way to do that is to be a great leader. And as we focus on the topic, aspire to lead, in many ways, you are an example of what business professionals aspire to lead as. What would you consider your greatest strength or asset to be that leader?
This is going to sound funny, but, the title of our lecture here is Aspire to Lead. And the reason that's the title is everybody asks me, you must have aspired to be the CEO or the commissioner. And I said, never. I never aspired to a box or a title. But I did aspire to lead. And it's really important for the students in the room. I know you're ambitious. I know you want to be a CEO someday, probably. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, who was a CEO at 27 and a billionaire. But always aspire to lead. And when you aspire to lead, there's a lot of clarity around your leadership style. There's a lot of clarity about making impact and getting things done. And so I think it's important to just hone in on why you don't aspire to a box or title, because, by the way, in the future of work, those boxes and titles may not even exist. And so aspire to lead, bring the next generation. One of the things, and I was blessed to have worked at Deloitte for a long time, which is an apprenticeship model. So you kind of started, you were at the bottom, just like when you were a freshman here, you're at the bottom, and then you're raised to be the big senior, big person on campus. And same thing, you start in business. And then you have this apprenticeship model that you get promoted after a couple years, then you're back at the bottom. Another couple years, you're back at the top, then you get promoted to partner, you're back at the bottom. And so I was blessed to constantly have that, so I constantly kept in perspective what it meant to work hard and lead and make sure that I was doing the best thing to bring the next generation behind me to be leaders, because if they didn't become leaders, then I couldn't rise. And so that's kind of a weird way to talk about, why I got to where I got. Well, it was mainly because I didn't aspire to be where I got, but I did aspire. There's nothing that made me happier every year around our promotion cycle when I saw the people that I had mentored or sponsored or worked with, even if it was for a day, get promoted to the next level. And that's, that's a pay it forward attitude that actually works in kind of today's environment.
Yeah, it's great advice and a really interesting perspective on leadership as a whole. What other qualities do you think make a great leader?
Well, today, and it's changed even over, the last 4 or 5 years, I think authenticity is probably number one today in a leader. I think our younger generation, we have many students here, can kind of sniff out an authentic leader from a mile away or a non-authentic leader. And so I think authenticity, I think an empathetic leader. So because I came from an apprenticeship model, I always say, I walked in everybody's shoes who was reporting to me because I was once them. And so I could always try to put myself in their shoes. And then probably the most important lesson that I've learned, and I'm not always good at it, is, and I saw this quote, and I don't know who said the quote, it might have been Winston Churchill or someone, but, listen with the intent to understand, not the intent to reply. And so as I thought about the last 4 years of my life as the CEO, did a lot of listening, by the way, to other CEOs who were facing this exponential change in technology in the fourth industrial revolution. And I listened a lot because I was really curious, what were their business problems so that I could lead Deloitte in the best way to evolve Deloitte so we could grow our revenue, we could find new sources of revenue like cloud and AI. And so listening is such an important skill today and we miss out on it sometimes because the pace of change is so fast.
Yeah, those are great qualities for sure. And don't forget to be thinking about questions. We'll have a Q&A section at the end of our chat here. You have many things to be proud of in your career and life thus far. What would you consider to be your biggest accomplishment in life?
Yeah, since one of my kids is here, probably my kids, when the provost was introducing me, he talked about being, one of the 50 best moms or something like that, most powerful moms. I said, boy, that was the thing I was most proud of. You get, when you become especially a female CEO, you get put on all these lists. But, being one of the most powerful moms is pretty cool. And then, and just having my kids see a role model, a strong woman, rising, in an organization, in business that, could be a role model, could inspire people. But clearly, raising my 2 kids, I coached my daughter's basketball team in middle school. Now, this was the hardest thing I've ever done, from 4th grade to 8th grade, think about it. And my best players in 4th grade and my tallest players in 4th grade were my shortest in 8th grade and weren't the best. So just to see, girls develop, and I'm big, fan now of making sure girls stay in sports, because in 4th grade, you may not be the best, but by 8th grade, you may be, or by 12th grade, or play at the collegiate level. So so that was probably my biggest challenge, was coaching middle school basketball, with girls basketball, but definitely, balancing. And one of the reasons I became the CEO too, I think, was because I was able to balance the, raising the kids and a career, and quite frankly, I never called it work-life balance. I called it work-life integration, because if I didn't integrate it, I was a bit of a perfectionist. I would have felt I failed. And at one point, I actually resigned from the firm when I was pregnant with my first child, because I said, I can't be a good wife, a good mom, and a good professional. And I resigned. And, thank goodness the firm came back to me, not because they ever thought, this was in 1997. I was 11 years out of Lehigh. I was a senior manager. I wasn't even a partner yet, because they just saw potential. It wasn't because they thought I'd be the CEO someday, but they saw potential. And it's another lesson for those that, seek feedback, because it wasn't until I resigned when the firm said, wait a minute, you have so much potential. well, you never told me that. And I just felt like I couldn't do it all. And, people talk about, like, can you have it all? And I'm, again, a big proponent of the have it all, that it is defined by someone else. And what I started to do from that moment on when I decided to stay was, can I do it all as defined by me? Could I be a really good mom and a good professional? And what did that mean to me? And, I tell this story a lot. I became the CEO on March 11th of 2015, and my daughter was in her senior year lacrosse season in high school. And the first game was March 15th. And I said, what am I going to do? Like, I'm the CEO, but she was an accomplished lacrosse player in high school and really want to see her games. So I did what any good CEO would do. I went to my executive assistant and said, 100% of your salary raise next year will be based on how many lacrosse games I get to. And my goal was 75%, and because I had lost control of my own schedule. And I actually, now you'll know I'm a CPA accountant, I actually got to 85.2% of her games. And the only ones I didn't get to were because they got rained out or whatever, and they got rescheduled when I already had travel. But so everybody can do this. I mean, if I can do it leading a firm of that size and scale, everyone can do it. And it was important to me, not only for my daughter, but I wanted to see the other moms and dads. I wanted them to see me there and that I could actually integrate this. And, was I taking calls at halftime? Sometimes, sure. But, I was able to be present at the games.
And your kind of leadership into being able to be a mother, a worker, a wife, it definitely rubbed off on your employees. You are credited for implementing a holistic well-being culture at Deloitte. As CEO, you consistently maintained high employee approval ratings as high as 97%. How did you do this? And how do you make Deloitte or any company a great place to work?
Yeah, I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, where are the 3% that didn't vote for me? Anyway, no, I mean, again, I'm proud. I mean, I was blessed to work for a big firm with a lot of resources, a big talent platform. But the one thing we did is we said, when you have 5 generations in your workforce, there's a life cycle of an employee. So whether you're 22, 32, 52, or 62, where do you fit in the model? And what we did is when you're 22, maybe you're looking for student loan consolidation and fitness subsidies. When you're 32, you're looking for parental leave. Maybe when you're 55, you're looking to take care of elderly parents, and there should be something. So we put in a holistic, and we put it like on one simple slide, and a holistic, life cycle of an employee, and no matter where you fell in that, you felt like you had a place. And then obviously we launched an inclusion platform, not just diversity and inclusion, so everybody felt included. And we actually, put something called inclusion councils together. Now, when we put it together, believe it or not, the media is so tough. The headline was, Deloitte scrapping focus on women for white men. That was the headline. And all we did is we said, the men have to be included in the conversation too. You can't just have these cohort groups. Whether it's your, BRGs, ERGs, your employee resource groups, which only have your LGBT community, only have your African American or your Latino, only have your women. We found that, increasingly people didn't want to be part of one cohort group, and people wanted to be part of something bigger across, what we now dubbed inclusion councils. So it tripled the involvement of the workforce in the ERG, BRG, and it really, I quite frankly, was a home run. And thankfully, Harvard Business Review wrote an article after that headline came out that was very positive, like this might be the future of what it looks like, because no one wants to be part of one cohort. And what if you had a black female who was LGBT? What cohort did they go to? You're going to make them go to 3? And now we have inclusion council. So it's those type of things that you invest in your people and invest in their future that they see and they feel, again, when you're running a people-first agenda.
And it's important that if allowing people to kind of go in between those groups also allows them to learn how to be allies for each other, and whether it be for the LGBTQ plus community or if there is an African American community, allowing those people to learn how to work together is very important.
Right.
And I do want to mention this. I love this quote you said, so we're running out of time, but as my last question, I read that you like to prioritize people over tasks. What does this look like when building a business? And what does it look like as we look towards the future with an increased emphasis on automated workforce as we move towards more robotics and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, somehow I was voted one of the most productive people, and that's when I said, they said, what's your secret? I go, I don't know, prioritizing people over tasks, and that kind of took off because I said every day I could come in and spend the entire day looking at my laptop or iPad or device and checking email and other things, and I could never prioritize our people. And so that's where that prioritize people over tasks, because every day I had, 100 tasks, and and how many hours are in a day, and so we started to really focus on if this didn't meet these criteria, and I'm doing the same thing at the WNBA. I just went on a 12-city tour. I have a list of 54 initiatives to get done. There is no way in my first year I'm going to get 54 initiatives done. So prioritize players over tasks. So now I just shifted a little bit from people to players because we're doing this for the players. This is all about the players. We're in collective bargaining negotiations. They don't have the right experience. I was a huge beneficiary of Title IX here at Lehigh. Never felt, what the men's basketball team got, the women's basketball team got. Same thing in high school, Title IX. Maybe here the wrestlers got a little more, by the way, but but not the basketball players. So always had this equal treatment. And today, that's what our women experience at the big colleges. And then they go into the WNBA and they're like a single A baseball player. Remember when Michael Jordan went from the NBA to single A baseball, and he ended up buying them a new bus because they were busing across the state of Tennessee and the bus broke down or something? And so, it's really important that you prioritize, again, in this case, players and the player experience. And what does player success mean? And taking those 54 items now on my to-do list and saying which ones are the most important and we should prioritize. And every day when I come in, if I'm not working on something in these 3 pillars of player experience, fan experience, and economics, I shouldn't be working on it. Now, it doesn't always work this way, but again, as you, especially the students in the room, get into leadership at the organizations you'll eventually join, you're just going to be bombarded with so many external and internal meetings and forces and emails, and I can't believe email's still around. Think about it. There's 2.5 quintillion bytes of data a day. 95% of the data in the world today was created in the last year. Think about that. So, by tomorrow, we're going to have another 2.5 quintillion bytes. And by the way, they're all in my email right now, it feels like. And so you really have to fish through all of the noise and make sure you're prioritizing the right things. Lehigh taught me one thing, and it was to be tactical. You have to be strategic, but just being strategic doesn't mean you're going to get stuff done. So, luckily I've been surrounded by great strategists in my career, and then I'm always like, okay, this sounds fluffy. What are we going to do to get it done? And that's when you get into the tactics. So that's what I'm doing right now, and really important.
Yeah, and as an aspiring business professional, it's very encouraging to know there's people like you and other aspiring to lead people in the business world trying to emphasize people over tasks.
Yeah, great, Mary.
Thank you. And that's all the time we have for our chat, but we will be turning it over now to a Q&A where the audience can ask questions for you.
Great, or you, or Mary.
Oh. For Cathy.
I'd like to thank both Mary and Cathy for an incredibly entertaining and instructive conversation. And Cathy, I love that term that you use, work-life integration.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that without attribution, but I am absolutely, that's great. I would encourage folks to come to the mics and queue up for your questions, but while we're waiting for the audience to come to the mics for the questions, I actually want to bring you back, Cathy, to something that you mentioned during your talk. And you talked about how gratifying it was to you to see people that you have mentored achieve success. And that is a very gratifying feeling. But could you share with us some mentoring advice that you got that impacted your career?
Yep, it's a great question, and there is a difference. We can touch on the difference between mentors and sponsors because they're very different, and people don't understand that. But A mentor is someone, obviously, you seek out for to run decisions by. So at one point in my career, when I was pregnant with my son, who's sitting right here, I was asked to move to our St. Louis office. I was in the New York area at the time, and while the client would have been great, it was a great opportunity to step up as a lead partner on something big. For my husband's job, I couldn't really move, and I just really didn't think it was right. And there was a client right down the road from me, and I was like 6 months pregnant with my son, and I went back to the firm and I said, there's a client right down the road, but I went to a mentor first before I went back to the firm, and they said, Cathy, if you're going to say no, and you can say no, you have to follow it with a yes. Help them solve another problem they have. So you're going to say no, and they still have this problem of finding someone for St. Louis. But find a solution to some other problem that they're trying to solve. And so it was kind of like this, have a yes to follow. So when I went back and said, no, I don't think St. Louis is right for me, I said, there's this client right down the road, had this vision of feeding the baby and running back. It was like 2 miles from my house, big pharmaceutical company, and I had pharma expertise when I was a senior manager. And so I went back to the firm and said, it's a no, but here's the yes that follows. I think I'm good for that. And guess what they said to me? We would have never thought of you for that client. That's 2 miles from your house and in an industry in which you have expertise. So what I learned is, no one's thinking about your career as much as you are. So think about that, students. When you leave here, raise your hand, talk to your supervisors. No one's thinking about your career as much as you are. And for me, I happen to have a mentor who gave me that great advice, you can say no, but follow it with a yes. And then I was fortunate to have sponsors. Sponsors are the ones, you don't even know they're there sometimes, that are pounding the table to get you positioned for a big role. And for me, I had a male sponsor, didn't even know it, worked with him for 1 day in Columbus, Ohio, when I was a derivative financial instrument expert. I went out and did a presentation to his client. And he said, she knows what she's talking about, or whatever he said. So he kind of took me under his wing behind the scenes, had a whole dashboard on me behind the scenes of she needs to build her capability and run a P&L. She needs to run a big client. And it was red, yellow, and green. He showed it to me after I became the CEO, which was a good thing because I said, I wasn't red in any of those things. But, there's a reason a sponsor's behind the scenes, and he was influential and powerful, and he was the one saying, and I didn't know how I was getting these assignments, but a sponsor was standing up for me and didn't even know it.
Right.
So that's mentor, great, sponsor, great. But you don't pick your sponsor.
Right.
You don't pick your sponsor.
Right. Questions?
Hi. First, thank you for being here, Cathy. Your discussion and conversation was really interesting. My name is Erica. I'm actually class of 2003.
Oh, great.
And was an accounting major and now live and work here in the Lehigh Valley. So in accounting, we learn and talk a lot about taking risks and evaluating risks. So how do you think about risk when it comes to your career, especially your most recent transition?
Yeah, so you have to take risks to succeed. You have to be willing to fail. The nice thing about my new job is we're a small enough league that we can take some risks and be bold, and we're not going to crumple on our own weight because we're big enough, and we have Big Brother NBA behind us as well. So I think you have to evaluate. You can't just take risk for risk's sake. You have to evaluate what the failure would mean. There's something out there now that's coming about because of the exponential pace of change called a pre-mortem. Instead of a post-mortem, a pre-mortem. So as you're taking those risks, put yourself as if you're in a post-mortem. Where do you want to be? What worked? What didn't work? And evaluate those up front, and it actually helps you manage the risk a lot better. And I give that advice to board of director members. I give that advice to CFOs who are looking at risk aperture. But you have to take risks to succeed. They don't have to be big risks. I don't have any great stories of huge risks and huge failure, but I do have a lot of stories of resiliency when something didn't work for me. And how, again, I think Lehigh as a institution really prepared me well for, again, this theory that you must be your best in your darkest moments. You got to prepare for the ordinary moments, but you must be your best in your darkest moments. And I think that's one thing in leadership that I think is really important if you want to be successful around taking risks is, just be ready if the risk doesn't work out. Be your best in that darkest moment and know that you'll learn so much from that, and it'll lead to success later on. But it's hard. It's very hard.
Next, go ahead.
Hi, Cathy. I'm Melanie, and I'm a senior here. I was wondering if you could give all of us seniors here that are going into public accounting once we graduate a little piece of advice that you wish someone had shared with you when you're going into that first year, which is always a little crazy and hectic.
Yeah, so I'd say the great thing about public accounting is you don't know it yet, and I didn't know it when I graduated here. Like, you'll be thrown in to some of the largest companies in the world, in the country, and you're going to be working on issues ranging from pensions to stock compensation to mergers and acquisitions to complex financial instrument valuations. And I mean, it's like a great training ground to really learn about business, especially with kind of this evolution of technology and business, and you'll be learning about cloud and ERP systems. So be curious. I wish I was more curious earlier in my career. I became very curious later in my career. And don't expect perfection. There'll be times when you'll work for a person or on a team that you don't like. Give everything 6 to 9 months, and then look to raise your hand if you want to transition into something else. I was an auditor and an audit partner, and I went from serving banks and financial institutions to serving big pharmaceutical companies. I worked in derivative financial instruments. I worked in our consulting business in human capital. So there's so many different things you can do, but get that good grounding in those first couple years in different industries and see how business is evolving, and the listen with the intent to understand too is going to be really important, because you're going to be thrown in and you're not going to feel like you know what you're doing. Listen, but don't be shy. Ask questions too.
Sorry, this is really high. Okay. Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm a junior. My question is, what is one valuable lesson that you learned the hard way during your career?
So probably, I'll switch the question a little bit to what's the best advice I've gotten that I followed and it paid off was, whenever you start a new job or a new leadership role, it's doing some small things of symbolic value that builds trust. And if you do a few small things of symbolic value, the harder, bigger things are easier to get done. So example, I become the CEO of Deloitte, I get this advice. And so we chipped away at some really small things like travel approvals and really tiny things. We called them bureaucracy busters. And when the partners saw that I was willing to take some of the bureaucracy out of their life, they trusted me. And then we got pension reform and we got some really tough things done. So I'm trying to think about the same thing at the WNBA, like small things to build trust with the owners so that I can get some bigger, harder things done over the longer term. So I'd say that's probably the best advice that I've seen people fail who try to come in and just be a tornado and get change and get transformation done, but you can't do it without doing some of the small things first. And then it relates to some advice I give university students all the time, which is, there was this commencement speech at the University of Texas about 5 years ago from this Admiral McRaven, where he was a Navy SEAL, and he talked about the top 10 things, if you want to change the world, do these 10 things, and they related to his Navy SEAL training. And number one, very simple, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. He then wrote a book called Making Your Bed. And whenever I say this to university students, they're like, really? She's telling me to make my bed? Like, really? But what it means is get the small things right. If you wake up in the morning and make your bed, no matter what kind of tough day you had, what kind of tough job, what kind of tough boss you dealt with, you're going to come home that night and guess what? Your bed's going to be made and you got something done that day. So again, get the small things done and they'll make you feel better about the tough days ahead. So thank you.
We have time for another one.
Hi, Cathy. My name is Ali, and I graduated from a program at Lehigh, Technical Entrepreneurship, and I started my own business in Bethlehem. I'm now at the point that I would love to learn your experience, what was the first time that you found yourself responsible towards building a team, and what was your solution, and what would you like to share with someone like me that needs that experience now?
Yeah, no, congratulations. Sounds like you're very entrepreneurial and innovative. And again, in this world of innovation and entrepreneurialism. I think, my best advice to you as you build a team is don't build a team of everyone that looks like you and thinks like you and, has the same skills as you. I mean, when I was interviewing to become the CEO, I said, I'm not the best strategist, I'm not the best this, that, and the other thing, but I'm going to surround myself with those capabilities so that as a team, we are going to execute against a strategy that's going to make us successful and make us grow. So I think it's build a team, a diverse team, diversity of thought with capabilities that you don't have. Because so often, especially entrepreneurs, they want to build a team of everyone who's like them. And that's a mistake. You have to build the capabilities you don't have. So, you can augment your strengths, but amplify your weaknesses by filling that in on the team. And again, make sure then you create a culture of inclusion on the team, that everyone has an equal voice at the table, everyone can be heard, and that there is a culture there. And again, I called it a culture of courage. You could call it something else. But building in that culture of courage and saying that courage could be being entrepreneurial, innovative, or could be a culture that you want to set for the organization. But you got to start with a vision around your strategy. You've got to get the right people around you to execute it. And probably one of the biggest mistakes I made in my career was not moving people that weren't right for the team out soon enough. And it's a really hard thing to do, especially if people have been working with the company for years and years. Got to move people on quickly if they're not going to be part of the vision, strategy, and the execution of the team. And I can imagine in a smaller business, that's even more important. Thank you for your question.
Okay, I would again like to extend my thanks to Cathy.
Wait, so one last thing. So really what I wanted to do in life...
We're done.
Really what I wanted to do in life was be an ESPN sportscaster. It's really so I'm getting a little closer, by the way. Getting a little too old to be one, but that's what I really wanted to do in life. So I have this great athlete here. So why wouldn't I interview her? So we're gonna do a lightning round, Mary.
Okay.
All I warned her, see? All I warned her is we're gonna do a lightning round, 1 or 2 word answers.
Okay.
Very quick, because we're running out of time. All right. Best late night study snack.
Popcorn.
What's the most recent app that you've downloaded?
Katanator.
I don't even know what that is, by the way. Who has had the greatest impact on your Lehigh career to date?
Susan Troyan.
Oh, Coach. Where's Coach? Give Coach
Sorry,
a
I said your
shout
first
out. There
name.
she is. Favorite song?
3 Little Birds.
Most memorable sporting event?
Wizards, Sixers last week.
Oh, wow. What Olympic sports do you like to watch?
Gymnastics and basketball.
And women's basketball.
Yeah, of course.
7th gold medal, remember that. All WNBA players playing in it. Favorite WNBA player?
Skylar Diggins.
All right, Notre Dame, Muffet McGraw product. NBA player?
Malcolm Brogdon, UVA.
All right, yeah. Astros or Nationals?
Nationals in 4.
Wow. Sweep is on. What will be the score of the Lehigh-Lafayette football rivalry game this year?
So based on scoring average and defensive points given up, Lehigh 21, Lafayette 10.
All right, Mary, thank you so much. All right, ESPN, I'm available.
Yeah, she's available. Call her. Again, thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. We have a couple of party gifts.
Oh, cool. And by the way, this is the basketball we play with in the WNBA, so the coolest part of being the commissioner, your name is on every ball. Coolest part. It's a little shocking to me, but there it is. For the good or bad.
So, Mary.
Oh, thank you.
So very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Oh.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great, Mary.
I
Rock
also have to
star,
thank
rock star, right
Dawn
here.
and Judy Gruhn for sponsoring yet another wonderful lecture and making us so proud to be part of the Lehigh family. Thank you. Good evening.